All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the WNR Body Transformation Podcast. I know it's basically been something like 2 weeks since I put out a podcast, but for the benefit of this podcast, right, I am going to be talking about my life as to what got me started into bodybuilding, just to give you guys like some backstory. But before we just get started, I just want to mention that I got a new mic and got a new haircut, right? Because the older I get, I can't seem to give a rat's ass about my hair, and I want to take bodybuilding, I want to take bodybuilding seriously. So, yeah, I mean, let's get cracking. But anyways, in today's podcast, I'm going to be talking about the things that low self-esteem drove me to do. You know, but just to give you guys like some context and some backstory, because I keep on spitting out knowledge, and that eventually gets boring, right? All of us like listening to stories. And how did this eventually lead to bodybuilding? But before we just get started, I just want to mention that whatever is mentioned in this podcast is solely for educational and entertainment purposes only. Please don't do any of the stupid stuff that I mentioned on this podcast. Whatever you want to do, please do it at your own risk, and feel free to like, share, subscribe, and spread the word out there, right? But let's probably get cracking, right? So for years I used to struggle with low self-esteem. Years, like literally, I used to wake up and why did it actually happen, right? Well, growing up in a traditional, and just to give you guys like some context and some backstory, growing up in a traditional Indian family, all that was emphasized right from childhood was, hey, you gotta get good grades, you gotta study hard, you gotta focus on your career, the way you look, the way you feel doesn't really matter that much. Well, it doesn't matter at all. That was drilled into me, and I don't really blame the conditioning, basically, because like my parents grew up really poor, right? And like they themselves were conditioned to the fact like you got to neglect yourselves and you just got to focus on making money, right? As a result of which they started chasing money. And the thing about making money is it doesn't work that way. If you chase it, you're gonna get it. Like you got to bring value to people's lives by helping them achieve their goals, right? And being very good at it and monetizing that in an ethical manner. So I'm no saint, but I'll just probably give you my example. I help people transform their bodies and optimize their health, right? I'm not just some like fuck all personal trainer who just does stupid shit. Like literally transformations is my thing. It is something that I'm obsessed with. Fat loss and muscle building is something that I'm obsessed with. Health and fitness is something that I'm obsessed with. And I help people achieve their goals. Like, so as a result of which, and I got results and I charge for it, right? And I'm not cheap, I'm expensive, but I provide value at the end of the day. And if you provide value to people's lives, right, people will sign up with you. People will pay you because you are helping them get to where they want to be, and they never had self-belief in themselves, right? So that was the whole, that's exactly how we make money. But anyways, I don't want to like preach right here or get philosophical about this, but this is exactly the whole purpose of making money, right? Obviously the sales, marketing, content production, etc. comes later. You got to learn that alongside, but at the crux of it, you got to be like really true to how you help people, right? But they grew up really poor. I don't blame them because of the colonial mentality. Their parents drilled the same teaching into my parents, which is my grandparents drilled the teachings into my parents, because my grandparents grew up in the British era, right? And when the British left India, right, they literally looted the country and the country was quite broke. So money was like the main priority, basically, right? As a result of which, this was passed down to me because my folks wanted me to have the life that they never had, and they only thought that money was the way out, because of which they neglected their health. And now my mom's got rheumatoid arthritis, right? And dad's a heart patient, and they have all the rich man diseases other than the richest. Dad's got sugar, diabetes, cholesterol. In case if you're wondering what am I wearing, I'm wearing I've just found some spare nasal breathing strips in my cupboard. So fuck it, let me just put it on, right? It just expands your nostrils so that it helps with the breathing, like to avoid snoring and all of that. But it's not necessary. Dropping body fat to avoid snoring is necessary. But anyways, I don't want to go off on a tangent. And right from childhood, right? How you look, for example, if you're balding, right? Why do you care about your hair? I mean, why are you chasing girls? Why are you chasing a good physique? Why do you want to spend on expensive clothes? Why don't you just simply get good grades? Because of which, whenever I flunk in examinations or fail, I'd be grounded, my PlayStation, etc. would be taken away, because of which I never really enjoyed my summer vacations. And then I would be locked in one room, master that particular subject, and in the final term or semester, whatever you want to call it, I topped the whole section. Right? But that was drilled into me, because of which I didn't really develop the social skills. I was too afraid to talk to women. I was too afraid to take care of myself, because I was conditioned to basically be a bit of a people pleaser with regards to what my parents wanted me to be, right? But I hope you get the point. Because of which I never really developed my self-esteem. And that basically is it. But all hell broke loose when I went to university. But in university, to compensate for the low self-esteem, I started smoking and drinking. But that was just like a bit of a brief phase. It was not that excessive. But in university, I was dating, I realized, okay, this area of my life where I'm too afraid to talk to women basically is lacking. So I'd read books or use cheesy pickup lines or watch TV shows where the guys were a bit cocky, etc. on how to get women. And back then there would be these BlackBerry Messenger days. So we would add as many women as possible, as many girls as possible, be cocky, be charming, do all of that regular shit. And how do I say this? I ended up losing my virginity to a 40-year-old woman, right? It was a fling. I regret it, not proud of it. And then I started, how do I say this? I started trying to chase as many girls as possible in university. Did it help? The answer is no. I mean, I got some successes. At the end of the day, it's a numbers game. But yeah, and then I eventually had enough. And then from there, I ended up dating a girl, right? As cheesy and cliche as it sounds. But just to wind back a little bit, I was always obsessed with hitting the gym, right? Because I wanted to look good. And around that time, I used to see all of these skinny boys with the Justin Bieber sort of physique with these fuckboy abs would get laid a ton, right? So I was like, okay, let me join the gym. And when I joined the gym, I was obsessed. I would run on the treadmill for hours, thinking that that's going to help me drop body fat. I would do a lot of crunches. I would do a lot of push-ups, but I would be too afraid to lift the weights because I was very insecure about my height. I'm not a tall guy. I'm 5 feet 6 inches basically, right? Short king. I was very insecure about my height. I'm like, cool, let me just put on some muscle, right? No, let me just drop the belly fat, because I used to be more of a very skinny guy, but a skinny fat guy, skinny fat sort of a guy, right? There was some success, but then eventually I literally fell in love with the gym. Then I was like, okay, let me start whoop-de-doo. The mic just fucking fell, man. All right, yeah, sorry about that. Then what happened was when I started dating this girl, okay, that's when I truly fell in love with bodybuilding, but I couldn't afford a coach. So I read a lot of Bollywood actors' blogs because Bollywood actors are ridiculously fit, and I started doing their diets. I started doing their training regime, whatever you want to call it. No success, right? But it was the early days, and I put on some muscle and newbie gains, right? And I was eating healthy, but then I'd have like massive cheat days on Saturdays and Sundays. So I never really dropped the body fat. And at the same time, this girl was not healthy. She was actually a distraction from my goals. She would, let's probably say, if we go for like a date, right? She'd feel insecure on the fact that she can't be healthy, because of which she'd make like a bit of a fuss if I'd order in a salad or whatever. This would probably go on for a while, but it was more like a toxic relationship. I wasn't any saint either, but it was more of like, yeah, she was quite insecure. She was overweight, right? And not like one of these obese body positivity feminists. But yeah, you get the point. She's chubby, right? Dated her for 2 years, and in the second year, all of a sudden, she just told me, I gotta break up with you because my dad has selected a guy for me. It's more of like the Indian culture, right? They like to fucking breed within their own castes, like, right? And I'm like, no. Like, I'll come and speak to your dad, right? And this was like the final semester in university. I was passing out of university. I was graduating. I went and spoke to a dad. A dad said, we want a guy who's pretty well settled, who's got a job, who's making enough money. And I don't blame the father, because at the end of the day, right, if I had a daughter, right, I would probably, oh fuck, it's very uncomfortable for me to talk about this shit. But anyways, if I would have a daughter, I would ensure that the guy has his shit together, right? He's healthy, he's fit, he's able to provide for my daughter, he's not like insecure, he's able to protect her, etc. All of that positive masculinity stuff, right? But then he's like, you don't have a job, but do you think I'm really forcing my daughter to marry this guy? I'm like, well, that's what she told me, that's what she said. And he's like, not really. I told her to think about it, and a month later she agreed to it. So I'm like, okay, I can fucking turn the world upside down. But then but if she's not on board with me, then it's fucking useless, right? So that like really broke me. And around that time, my dad was losing his job. Well, my dad doesn't really earn that much, right? And I was passing out of university with an accounting and finance degree. I taught my section, but yeah, I was like, okay, what is there, right? What is there in life right now? As a result of which I fell in love with bodybuilding, but I got a lot of wrong advice, and combined that with stress eating and all of that, I put on weight. So I'm just gonna upload the image right here for you guys to have a look at it. I had the same haircut, right? But I don't know, in irritation or something like that, I think so I shave my hair, but right now I shave my hair because I wanna. But that was a blessing in disguise, because I fell in love with bodybuilding even more, and I got obsessed with reading the information, and I lost some weight, got back to square one. It was like 5 to 6 kilos, I think so. From 75 kilos I dropped down to something like 60 7 kilos. The first book that I read was the first legitimate textbook that I read was Arnold Schwarzenegger's New Modern Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding. But little did I know that he was not talking about the Diana ball, which is obviously a steroid, which they take back in the day, right? So I tried everything, right? I thought that I had to bulk. I became a fat fuck. But then I went to one of the gyms and I asked the trainer, like, hey man, like you're in pretty good shape. Can't afford a coach, but I like to read about this stuff. How do you suggest I go around it? And he suggested that I read this book by Brad Schoenfield, who's more of like a sports scientist, on how to build muscle and drop body fat. So, and then around that time, I was still working in DIFC as a compliance officer, where my main job was to do background checks if the finances of the companies were straight, before they enter the economy. And around that time, let me recall. Around that time, I hated it. I fucking hated that job. But that was my only way after university to get a job and become a permanent employee. But then around that time, my parents, right, they scooped out. My mom used to be an assistant teacher in school. So one of her colleagues told her, like, these personal trainers make a lot of money. And I was like, yeah. And she's like, wow. And she told my dad, and the thing about my dad is he's more of like an obsessive guy, sort of just like me. And right now I'm preaching the scale of balance. Right now I'm in a cut, right? So previously during cuts, I would have like 7-8 Diet Pepsis a day. And now I'm like 4 Diet Pepsis a day. Previously I would just like abuse the stevia. And now I've consciously reduced it. So I'm learning how to be balanced within the context of my goals, basically. So then one of the next goals is going to be like when I travel abroad to other countries. If I want to smoke a joint or if I want to have a drink, I do it, but not in excess, and still stay on track with my nutrition. So being balanced within the context of my goals. I get these obsessive traits from my father, basically. I get these, I don't know if I get it from my father, but that's what I've seen. And what happened was, my father scooped out an institute which teaches personal training. I did my level 3 reps qualification right there. I became a personal trainer, and from there I got a job, right? So as a personal trainer in a gym, fucking awful. Worked over there for 2 years. Realized that working in a commercial gym solely revolves around how many people you can sell to rather than how many people you can transform. Hated it. I was almost about to give up because I was never able to sell back in the day. And I was almost about to give up, and then Ultimate Performance, which is a gym which solely specializes in helping people transform their bodies, hired me. And for the next 4 years, all I did was transform people because I fell in love with my passion. Again, my job was my passion, right? I was like, fucking hell, gyms like these existed, right? I'm gonna put some photos right there. Now around that time, coming from an Indian background, right, I was introduced to the British crowd, so I felt very insecure about my nationality, right? Now I don't give a fuck, right? Because as Indians, we usually like to see white people as superior. Well, I don't blame them, because people in the West usually have a more of like what's best for me attitude rather than the selfless attitude, as a result of which they take care of their health, their fitness, their fashion, etc. They're pretty balanced with their work life, compared to Indians, which is like they neglect their mental health, physical health, and they just work. So around that time, basically, I was my low self-esteem started creeping up on the surface, right? So I derive my sense of self-worth just by overworking the fuck out of things. I still lacked social intelligence back then, because of which this affected my dating life a lot. I was never able to get women. The previous breakup affected me so much, and I was pretty good at transforming people, but then all of these mental health issues, right, they started creeping up on the surface, and I'd still stress eat, but it was relatively less, but it was there. But around this time, I did my first photo shoot. Image right here. And this was the crucial moment in my life, which made me go to, wait, let me just see the notes, right? Because, yeah, which made me want to address the problem. Like, okay, my dating life is pretty shit, right? And as a nerd, right? I'm a nerd at heart. I'm a problem solver at heart, right? And what happened was I was waiting for the bus to go back home. Back then I used to travel on the RTA public transport bus. And I was just searching for articles or books on how to talk to girls, right? And that's when I got introduced to the world of picking up women and day gaming and night gaming. I don't know if you guys are aware, guys or girls who are listening to this are aware about this, but day game is more of like the skill of chatting up girls in the daytime without relying on alcohol. So this could be in the shopping malls, this could be in the coffee shops, gyms, wherever the fuck you are, right? And I got obsessed with that shit, right? I'd spend hours in the mall. I would record my conversations with women, go back home, analyze it, listen to the podcast from these creepy dating coaches. And it took 3-4 years, but eventually I got fucking good at it. But then, the better I got at it, it didn't solve my self-esteem issues, right? I derive my sense of self-worth by trying to sleep with as many women as possible, right? The self-esteem began to get better, but it was not completely gone. And then eventually around that point of time, right, I got so good at picking up women that I ended up seeing them as a computer equation. And at some point of time, I also started hating them. So this also affected my job because I was not able to communicate with women properly and see them as human beings. So yeah, now it's much more empathetic because I worked on my insecurities. And yeah, like a lot of good girls came, but I fucked it over by being an idiot. And with more dates and all of that, and with more girls and with getting laid a ton, the smoking and drinking became excessive, right? And that also led to me trying to feel good by stress eating, because self-esteem issues were never really gone, right? And then when I quit my job and started my own business, I began to travel. And in the first so it's been something like, when did I start my business? Yeah, I started my business in 2021 end, and now it's 2026. So it's been something like 4.5 years basically since I started my business. In the first year and a half, right, I began to see the sort of money that I've never really seen before compared to my previous job. The previous job was pretty well paying. I'm like, wow. And that allowed me to travel. So I traveled to places like Russia. I traveled to places like, which countries? Yeah, I traveled to Thailand. I traveled to Iran. I traveled to, where else did I go? Vietnam. I traveled Vietnam, Europe, went to Tomorrowland, Amsterdam, right? And the smoking weed and the drinking became excessive over there. Like, when I go, it was like, bam, all out, right? Rather than balanced, basically. But eventually now it's become much more balanced. But And then around that time, I would just do like these day game trips basically, which would last anywhere between 14 to 30 days. As a result of which, I smoke a lot of weed, stress eat, get fat, undo my fitness goals, and I feel like a bit of a fraud, right, with my clients. And I feel really vulnerable putting myself out there. Because the self-esteem issues were never really sorted. I didn't really know how to be balanced. It was more of like an all or nothing personality, right? So, but then from 2023 onwards, like in 2022, I got a scare. In 2023 mid, I got a scare. It was more of like a bit of an STD scare, basically, right? It was not like fucking HIV or something like that. It was more of like an STD which could be cured through antibiotics. It was known as gonorrhea, right? In normal slang, it's known as the clap, but it was just like a bit of a false alarm, and that forced me to get my shit together. Not completely, but yeah, the excessive drinking stopped, but the excessive smoking weed was too much when I'd probably travel, right? 2024, 2023, 2024, I started getting my act together. I started working on my self-esteem. Not consciously, unconsciously. Every now and then I would read practical self-help books like Atomic Habits, etc., rather than inner self-help books on karma, etc. So I'd still have this all or nothing mentality. Would not have my priorities in check. Because of which, right, the business slightly suffered, but yeah. But then, like, literally taking my own physical health and my mental health and having a purpose literally fixed it. So, right now, I legit love bodybuilding. I legit love my business. I legit love coaching the right type of people, which is like high functioning analytical men who are not able to build a physique because of analysis paralysis, and they think that outer techniques, right? Basically people like me, right? I love helping people like them, and I love traveling, right? But what's made the most amount of, and this time when I went to Vietnam, right? Did I smoke weed? Yeah, I did. I did. But, I mean, for the first time, I just put on like a kilo over a span of something like 14 days. Compared to past trips, when I went to Iran, and I smoked a lot of weed basically over there. Put on like fucking 5 kilos over a span of something like 12 days. Right? Now, slowly and steadily, I've gotten my priorities straight, but I want to be like the best bodybuilding coach in the long run, but also be the best body transformation coach for guys like me, and establish balance, and also being very conscious on working on my mental health lately. So I've been reading a lot of spirituality books on Buddhism. Fuck me, that's helping. So this is my story. I don't know what value you guys are going to get out of this, but if you found this useful, feel free to like, share, subscribe. I know it's a different one. It's not like a technical one, but yeah. The other thing, just to give you guys like a bit of a physique update. So I am still dropping body fat, right? We're not like far away as per my coach. And these are my physique shots. My front body is pretty lean, but the back body, we're just waiting for the lower back fat to clean up. And that basically is it. Now, business was low. I was losing followers, right? Because when you put out educational content on Instagram, you're gonna lose fucking followers instead of entertaining content. On top of this Dubai-Iran war caused the commodity prices to go up. Been having argument with my parents. The stress levels were extremely high, like fucking extremely high, right? And this is still no reason for me to blame shit, but last Saturday, I had a binge, right? After something like 7 to 8 weeks. But and it was in the night, which is not like me. But what did I do the next day? And this is for everyone out there. If you have a binge, right? If you have like an off-plan meal or whatever, like, okay, now this is me going inside the technical side of things. If you have a binge, like, if you have an off-plan meal, don't have this mindset like, okay, now I had an off-plan meal, let me just eat shit for the full day. Now, if I've eaten shit for the full day, let me eat shit for the next day as well. If I've eaten shit for the next day, let me start from Monday. Or, I mean, let me just do it for the full week. Like, no. So what I did was, the binge went off for something like an hour and a half, right? Next day I woke up, I felt guilty. Now, the thing is, sit through that guilt. Don't try to avoid that guilt by eating more shit food. Right? Trust me, I've been there, I've done that. But then, take a piece of pen and a paper, identify what triggered you, how you can work around it and avoid it, and have some backup strategies in place, and get back to whatever the fuck you're doing. I promise you, things will settle down back to square one in something like, how do I say this? 2 to 4 days. Because if your fat loss progress has been accumulating for a long period of time, like, one binge is not going to knock you out of it, basically. It's more of like a volume. It consistently builds up over a given period of time. So yeah, I hope that makes perfect sense, right? But people, if you found this useful, feel free to like, share, subscribe, and have a nice one, right? Have a nice weekend.